Hello everyone and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. My name is Gyulbudaghyan and I'm the editor of the creative tech section here at EVN Report. My guest today was Gyulbudaghyan. Gyulbudaghyan is the founding partner at Strategic Values Ventures, a strategic advisory firm for global startups. He is also an ambassador for Berkeley Skydeck, the largest startup accelerator program in the University of California system. We spoke about what it takes to build a thriving tech ecosystem and how Armenia can be the regional hub for linking ecosystems from this part of the world with larger ecosystems such as California and Europe. Thank you for listening. Gyulbudaghyan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Gyulbudaghyan, I want to start with a little bit of your background. Tell us how you got involved in the startup space, in the startup world.
Very quickly, I have or bring about 30 years in the space, professional career. I'm originally from Armenia, from Yerevan. Was born, raised, attended physics math school, PhysMat, which was a huge kind of changer for me. Then followed by Yerevan State University, then started in Moscow State University, so prominent place, then Stanford.
What did you study at YSU in Moscow?
It was economics and financial analysis.
Mm-hmm.
In Stanford, it was a joint program between the academia at Stanford and also industry, and it was about strategic decision and risk management. So whenever companies, especially large companies, making huge strategic decisions like pharma, oil and gas, even agencies like FBI or tech companies, imagine the impact or implications of investing tens, hundreds of millions, right?
Yeah.
So that was really interesting insight, which interestingly also coincided what I've been doing at that time in the Silicon Valley. So most of my career pretty much I spent in the US working for the government, big consulting, then high-tech, multinational corporations, and also small businesses, startups. So with startup world specifically, since we're going to talk about this, I was involved from very early days, even from 90s, then 2000s, throughout my career in different capacities. And overall, people tell me my experience is quite unique, even for US standards. It's all around, as I mentioned, but the unique part, what I consider is like being in different shoes,
Right.
Being pretty much in everyone's shoes, from cross-functional, cross-discipline, being, developing policies, for example, tax, business policies, enforcing those policies in different times, different places, structuring major deals, negotiating those deals, changing legislations at the state and local level, even helping, driving strategy for data centers at Yahoo. So it's been pretty much quite interesting ride.
Very diverse background.
But if I boil down, which is important piece, boil down all these pieces, it comes down to really my expertise in connecting the dots. Like seeing the same facts, seeing different aspects, sometimes adding new, but connecting the way which creates something sometimes unique. In other words, especially why I was headhunted by Yahoo back in those days, and helped them create something unique program, which was or became quite also unique for the industry at that time, was this whole concept of how to connect strategic interest of the company with strategic interest of multiple stakeholders like state, local governments, universities, community, stakeholders who are typically or never been around the same table, right? For a number of reasons. Connecting those interests, creating something like anchoring major goal, which can bring them together, number one. But most important, designing and aligning incentives for all the players. which is important because if you have mismatch of these incentives, you can't really create something which is long-term.
Yeah.
Sustainable means all the parties win at the end, and it's flexible. Flexibility means you can't predict the future.
Right.
And what I'm dealing with all the time is embracing uncertainty, because we are on the forefront of different aspects, creating new programs or new opportunities, and we'll talk about this when I come down to my collaboration with Skydeck. You can't really predict the future. At the same time, all the players have specific controls or mechanism in place how to act or how to interact when things happen. Right? So that's what I've been doing. In other words, that means creating ecosystems, tech ecosystems, entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems. Yeah. The last 5 years, my focus when I created Strategic Value Ventures, which is currently advisory firm, strategic advisory firm based in San Francisco, which help essentially to create this cross-border ecosystem. In other words, a bridge between Silicon Valley and specifically Armenia, which was essential to spearhead all the changes in tech ecosystem in Armenia.
When was this founded?
So we're talking about 2017, about 5 years ago. History goes, at the time I finished my mission with Yahoo, and I was really deeply thinking about what is the next big thing I want to focus on. So what's the next big thing? What is the major problem in the space? And I wanted to focus on startups, on what I consider is my next big adventure, but I had no specific idea of which angle to tackle. I mean, is it from the financing side, from VC's standpoint, or from other major issue which existed at the time? And indeed, when I start thinking about like what is missing, on one side, major problem statement which I saw, at least why I didn't go into VC world at the time, was this whole classical VC is based on numbers, large numbers. You spread your investments across multiple companies, and your yield, probably, if you're lucky enough, if you can return and good returns, usually out of your portfolio, 90% of companies fail, 80 to 90%. 10 can make it. It wasn't kind of good outcome in my mind. I mean, it's the name of the game, at least for classical VC. But I wanted to understand why. And I started talking to VCs, to founders, and to understand what is really going on. I mean, I surveyed VCs and asked, so you just made $500,000 or $1 million investment. Yeah. Like, how much time do you spend with the founder to develop, to nurture, right? So in average, it became around 40 minutes a month.
40 minutes a month that the VC spends with the founder? That's
kind of because classical VC is not in the business of developing founders.
Right.
But on the other side, the founders are constantly under pressure. Right. They need to make decisions, not on a daily, but on an hourly basis. And they constantly under this pressure of time and pressure in general to make decisions. Yeah. So when we're looking through development of typical company, you will see this pressure is creating significant disbalance, I would say, or huge issues on the founder that over a period of time, the quality of decision making goes down if there is no support.
Is that because it's driven by these very specific metrics that VCs just constantly want to see?
Not only that, but you have team, you have a product to develop, so you're constantly under pressure. Right. And if you don't have this support, what I call support environment or support mechanism, who can you talk to? Like I'm asking founder, who is on your speed dial? Who's your advisor? What kind of support environment do you have to do like as a sounding board, to ask the question, to, run this idea or ask for the advice, right? And that, and I'm talking about at this point, Silicon Valley, right? So most of the time, this environment of support is missing or it's inadequate. And imagine this issue in the region like Armenia.
Yeah.
We're talking about 2016, 15, 17. It's pretty much non-existent
Right.
at the time. I mean, we haven't had much in terms of like startups at that time. But even if you do, like, what kind of support do you have?
Right.
So this is a segue to the second major problem statement, which I was considering back in 16, 17, early 17, was, okay, we have these clusters, I would say, regions on the map, like Armenia in post-Soviet countries, in Russia, in Ukraine, in Kazakhstan. If we're looking at the major region, right, where scientific and technological advances, where we had this excellence in one's in traditions of developing scientific or technological innovations.
Yeah.
So Armenia is definitely one of these major centers. I mean, we had a major setback in 90s and early 2000s. Nevertheless, we have expertise and we have still these traditions. And when I say traditions, means this tribal knowledge, which is transferred from grandpa to son to grandson.
Yeah.
Or from friends and so on, right? So this knowledge, this support mechanism.
Yeah.
So what we never had, at least over the last 100 years plus, right? We haven't had this tradition and expertise to build global companies around those innovations.
Right. That scientific activity was done in universities and academic settings and wasn't commercialized.
Right. But you don't have anyone who really successfully built companies around those innovations, sold kind of globally, and runs those, which pretty much existent in the Silicon Valley, but non-existent in this region, right? And we're not talking about just Armenia. We're talking about large region. Yeah. So because of that, those companies, startups, or ideas are not visible in the Silicon Valley. You created some tech,
right.
Like technology, but you're not visible in Silicon Valley. They don't see you.
You're talking about from Armenia.
No, from Silicon Valley, they don't see those opportunities in Armenia.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
The second problem why they don't see, they may be familiar, but they can't really work with them because of the big differences in mindset, culture, business culture. So what is prevalent in Armenia, in the region, is the lack of business acumen, business culture, especially when we talk about global.
Yeah.
And again, these are the major, another fundamental problem for Armenian, for example, startup or company to enter US market, for instance. As a matter of fact, of any company from outside, from any region, right? It's a lack of trust, reputation, and credibility. When you arrive to the US, you want to raise money, you want to start a business or connect with customers. Beside the issues I listed, there is this, they don't know you. Mm-hmm. They don't trust you.
Right.
You don't have any credibility. Why you? What kind of, track record do you have, right? What kind of mindset do you have, right? And that's something you cannot really solve very quickly. It requires time, money, and definitely some other support mechanism and support environment. So for all these issues, and I'm looking at this back in 16, and I'm saying, how can we solve this? Mm-hmm. The major focus, which at that time was absent from anyone's solution, was like, okay, everyone is focusing on, you come, we help you to raise funds, we give you money. But again, as we saw, if you're not developing these capabilities, global capabilities, if you're not really changing the mindset, if you're not really creating new capacity for these founders, you give them $1 million, they're not going to be able to create the company. Right. They're going to spend it, but the outcome is pretty much, because they don't see that. So let me take you through analogy, right? Okay. When you starting a new business or a startup, right? You run idea in Armenia. You typically what I call you have a tunnel vision. You have narrow and limited visibility in terms of how it works. How to connect with people. How to interpret signals they send. I'm talking about the global community of investors, companies. So essentially, you are in a dark and narrow tunnel, and you go through this tunnel. And if you're in the tunnel, pretty much your opportunities are limited. So, idea of like how can we take them out of this tunnel to see the entire and huge, broad horizon with all the colors and shapes and opportunities that exist on the world stage, right? How to make it happen. So that was the major, I would say, problem statement and the idea. And again, no one really at the time was focusing on this psychological, emotional aspect of how to transform the mindset. So to solve this problem, and we're coming to the point of our connection with, my connection at least, with Berkeley Skydeck. So as a background, University of California, Berkeley, like many other top universities.
Yeah.
And UC Berkeley is the top university in different rankings. As a top school,
I think it's the number one ranked public university in the world as well, or at least in the United States.
Yeah, in the past, and now it's number one based on different rankings, period.
Yeah.
They also number one in terms of how many founders came out of the university. Stanford is the second. UC Berkeley, also known as birthplace of biotech.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So there are largest number of Nobel Prize laureates. So it's essentially a lot of things, huge potential.
Yeah.
And as many top universities, they had internal space for faculty, for students, for alumni to come together, create new opportunities to develop IP, to commercialize IP, which the university creates, right, internally. So in 2017, we got introduced. There was a change in Skydeck was the largest at the time. Berkeley Skydeck was the largest in the Berkeley system and also the largest entrepreneurship and innovation center, also known as accelerator / incubator.
Not larger only than YC as well.
Within Berkeley, it was the largest. It was the largest also in UC system, I believe, at the time.
University of California system.
But when we met, there was this idea, we want to make it global. We want to open up to global companies. And it was definitely very attractive thought for me because I was looking how to solve the problem as I described previously, and I needed big partner for that. A platform to make it at scale, to really create that expertise, especially for founders from the region, from Armenia and the region, which can find that place really nurturing for them because there are a lot of specifics. So I definitely offered my help to bring companies and fast forward. Today, Berkeley Skydeck is the top university accelerator based on Forbes ranking. They are the only one which is open to global companies still. And what is also unique that it became also self-sustainable. It's also a very huge achievement.
Yeah.
Essentially, Berkeley Skydeck doesn't take money from Berkeley anymore. University.
Got it. Just the equity that they take from the startups and the...
There is a different structure, public-private partnership between Berkeley Skydeck and Berkeley Fund, Skydeck Fund, which is a separate entity which pledged to provide 50% of the carry, which is the profit, which they will generate from each, deal, right, back to the university, which is very important.
Yeah.
But the daily, operational cost is covered by other programs from partnerships with companies outside and also a global innovation partner, which we'll talk about in a moment, which I helped to instigate essentially or create based on the model in Armenia, by the way. So fast forward, we now have the place in Berkeley. Skydeck, I believe today over 150 companies went through the process from almost 50 countries. Armenia has the largest number of companies which went through the process.
per capita or?
No, absolute.
Period. Wow. And some very prominent Armenian startups like Crisp and Superannotate, AimHub have all been graduates of the Berkeley Skydeck program.
So you can say that it not only helped them, in many cases, it shaped these companies as we know them today.
Yeah.
And again, in brief, Skydeck program in many ways different from any other accelerators. How? First of all, it's a 6-month program.
Mm-hmm.
It's important because for founders which are coming from this region, it's important to have this transformation. Mindset takes time to change. Essentially, what I've been helping companies by developing on one side Skydeck as a platform for these founders from this region. On one side, I was helping Skydeck to understand the context, the mindset, and also the culture of the founders who are coming from this
part
place.
of the world. Yeah.
Their unique, I would say, strengths, if you will, how to work with them in a way, right? What are the top places they're coming from to recognize the quality, right?
Yeah.
On the other side, these companies were coming from small narrow environment, as I said, like tunnel, right? I was helping them to become or to place them in larger, intense and condensed environment. Imagine the place where for 6 months you constantly talking to tens and hundreds of top experts from different industries, different parts of the world, which are connected or gathered around UC Berkeley and UC Berkeley Skydeck as a community, as an ecosystem, right? We're talking about also very practical workshops, environment of support where you constantly connected and nurtured. What's unique also, you receiving, you matched as a founder, as a company with different key advisors like myself and many others who work with you not just ad hoc, but they work with you for the duration of the program. They are your champions. They are, meeting with you regularly, pretty much on a weekly or bi-weekly. They guide you. They also make sure that whatever asks you have, heard by a bigger community, you connect it with right people, right places. So regardless which part of the world you're coming from Japan, from Korea, from Armenia or Europe, right, or Latin America. So that's what been quite unique. Also, what's unique, what other accelerators cannot really provide, it's access to this whole unique resources of the top research university. We're talking about professors, postdocs, working with
PhD
students, right? So as part of the program, you work with interns from different departments. Interns are students from University of California, Berkeley, even MBAs or even postdocs, right? And our Armenian companies, at least, they benefited tremendously. Like Superannotate is a great example where this collaboration with the professor and his postdocs resulted in a huge success. At least in early stages, it was quite important process, which shaped and changed the company as we know today, Superannotate. So that's kind of the potential. Now, what happened, during this process, if I can break it down to this last 5 years. So stage one or phase one was to help our partner, UC Berkeley Skydeck, to become who they are, right? So I helped them with deal flow. About 15% of companies who went through the process, not only Armenian, but many others came through my referral. And that's important because I'm part of the selection committee on both tech and biotech.
Your word carries weight.
So I spend and invest a lot of time and efforts, definitely close to 1,000 hours a year, to review thousands of applications from 100 countries and do deep interviews. Also to work, as I mentioned, as a key advisor with companies who are part of the cohort and GIP programs. This is essential because you have very much deep insight, unique insight, which is not available to many. in this business at least. It helps to see new opportunities. And one opportunity which we jointly work with Skydeck, back in 2019, one aspect which I shared with, or one insight which I shared with Skydeck was, look, we're no longer in the business, as I stated, of accelerating individual companies anymore, or only. We're now also in the business of accelerating entire ecosystems, from country-level ecosystems. And I shared some stats at the time about Armenia. I said, look, the fact that so many Armenian companies went through your program, Skydeck, which is a huge, tremendous credit to Skydeck and its community and its ecosystem, they transformed, they became global phenomena. They raised tens of millions of dollars in investments. They created, at that time, was over 300 plus highly skilled, highly paying jobs, primarily in Armenia, but also in other global places in US as well. They created new clusters which did not exist in AI, computer vision, right? So this economic development, this
catalyst
multiplier effect, we now feel even today. This acceleration, what we see today, started back in 2017 with CRISP and super annotate, because so many people came through these companies. And today there are about 20 companies which I helped to go through the program, different processes.
20 Armenian companies.
Armenian founders, yes.
Armenian founders,
yeah. So we have now critical mass which is not matched by any other country.
Right. I've heard they refer within Berkeley Skydeck to the Armenian founders as sort of like the Armenian mafia of the space, right? That's you. That's your doing.
Yes, I heard these anecdotes. You created Armenian mafia. But, jokes aside, what it helps to do, it creates really, success of Armenian companies led to success of Skydeck and vice versa, right?
Right.
Number one. Number two, it showed a huge impact on the country where they came from. They no longer just local Armenian companies. They're global companies based in Armenia developing their, and that's unique as well, by the way, for many countries where founders just ready or want to leave the country. In our case, in this case, these companies, these founders wants to live here. They want to raise families here. The lifestyle, they love it. But at the same time, they are global phenomena. They sell globally. They understand the language of global business now. So many hundreds of employees going through the process, through the company. They even if they leave, they now learn some new business skills. They had exposure, global exposure. They are, now promoting the Western style thinking. Right. So it's quite important because that leads to new new generation of ideas in companies. And as a development of this ecosystem within these 5 years, you can see that the founders who started 5 years ago, they now, investors as well.
Right.
Like Big Story is one example, which in case of, for example, CRISP and a few others, they not just creating company, they sharing their experiences, they sharing their do's and don'ts in a sense, right, with the community. And this is how we have now traditions and new expertise in place, and also critical mass, as I said, which again, in many ways, ahead of many countries in the region. So if we look at the region, because I can see from standpoint, being also part of the selection committee and processes which I see in the Valley, Silicon Valley.
What do you consider a region to be?
Region is quite large.
Is it the post-Soviet space, or is it Eastern Europe?
No, it's beyond just post-Soviet. We're looking at post-Soviet, Eastern Europe. We're looking at Middle East also.
Okay.
I'm not looking at Israel as for sure, but some countries in Middle East, definitely developing their own ecosystems. And in that sense, Armenia has a huge potential, which they don't. They don't. It's just there are factors which can help Armenia to develop in a different direction, in faster direction.
So when you're evaluating the long-term impact that some of those companies that have gone through Skydeck are going to have, is it possible that in the next generation of startups that are built and developed, that are largely coming from maybe people who have worked at these companies, will they be able to be more independent of these large global accelerators such as Skydeck? Will that expertise then exist in Armenia so that they can get it locally, or will they still be reliant on the California ecosystem?
Right. So this seemingly simple question has several kind of parts.
Yeah. I guess my question is, what do we need to build here in Armenia so that we have both?
So if I describe again back to like what happened over the last 5 years, on one side I help my partner, place, and I believe in the program which we started or still in development at Skydeck, because it's still the only place, the only platform, not only for Armenia. I mean, it remains the single place for the entire region. This region, which, especially for Armenia, which consistently every year produces or kind of takes Armenian founders through the process.
Yeah.
And thanks to that, we now have, again, something which creates and builds new capacity and capability within the ecosystem in Armenia. That's number one.
Yeah.
So the second phase was to take to Skydeck early stage companies, startups. Yeah. The third phase for me was to expand this to companies which are more mature.
Right.
They may or may not be a startup in a typical sense. Mm-hmm. They may have large revenue. They may have even teams of 100+ people. Right. Nevertheless, they have the same fundamental problems as small startups. Yeah. Number one, it's talent development. Yeah. The opportunities are limited, and Skydeck provides really huge potential for these people to, again, go through the program, transform, to see global opportunities. Because if you're a founder, if you top management, right, you can act and you can build the next level of your product if you see or connect it with the processes on the global scale. Mm-hmm. You understand how investors think. You understand what specifics are in the enterprise, which you may not have in your local market. Right. Yeah. And you know about them typically from either listening or some general conversations, but you don't have insight from the experts who've been in that business for 20+ years. And this is where, again, the network of advisors and who are supporters of Skydeck or that ecosystem come in place. So that's all these pieces were done to this point. My major, I guess, even back in 2017 idea, this big North Star essentially, was how we can create in Armenia the capacity and capabilities to build the base, the hub for the entire region. Right. So Armenia is the place where you have...
that expertise is there.
Right. So you essentially like the processing place. Yeah. You're no longer just a resource place, but you help these companies from any country in the region to come and, raise their bar, essentially, to go through the program which is done in Armenia. Use the resources, services in Armenia, which representatives from region, to be able to connect with the global network. And it's very much essential and possible to do in Armenia, connect that network. Mm-hmm. So they are working with companies in Armenia. So all that, something which this year I'm working on and talking to a number of interested parties in developing this whole mechanism, structure and mechanism of partners, and also raising funding for that. Yeah.
So in a way, Armenia can serve as, maybe I won't frame it correctly, you'll correct me, it'll sort of serve as what Berkeley Skydeck is able to do in California as what Armenia can do for this part of the world. for this region.
With the help of Skydeck.
With the help
too.
of Skydeck, yeah.
Yeah. So
with help of global players.
essentially, I want to. I see this as again expansion of our partnership with or collaboration with Skydeck to not only bring the name but their network expertise, the program, which helps both sides. I mean, on one side, it helps to raise the bar and create a new pipeline of great companies, which can go to Berkeley or now even in Milan, where we really created new center of excellence for Skydeck Europe. So I'm looking to create that place in Armenia, which can serve the region.
Mm-hmm. How important is the role of the university in that ecosystem?
Huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, if you understand the potential of the university, right? And university has some resources and even, I would say, the aura.
Yeah, the environment that it creates. Yeah.
What I sometimes I compare, for example, Berkeley Skydeck is a Saturn. University, UC Berkeley, is a planet. Big. It many things gravitates towards that huge planet, and that planet can attract or otherwise, right? Many processes, people, associations, and what it can create around that planet, the rings of Saturn, right?
Yeah.
Those are, if you look individually, those are VCs. Those are, alumni.
Yeah.
Kind of groups, different type of small R&D, entrepreneurship clubs, and many other things, or just in general, this interested people who never even went to the university.
Yeah,
UC Berkeley, like myself.
You're part of the
are part of the processes, right? So that creates this visible ring. So how can we recreate similar aspects in Armenia or in the region for the universities here, right?
Is that something you're involved with now?
Yeah. So we are in talks right now, and the hub which I'm talking about, essentially it's a neutral place which allows many partners, many players.
Universities. And
on one side, different universities to be around that.
Yeah.
VCs, service enterprises or providers and companies. Why it's essential. Armenia is an ecosystem. It's very small still and fragmented.
Yeah.
And it also comes from the mindset, local mindset. It's me, it's mine, right?
You grew up here.
There is this kind of lack of collaboration.
Okay, got it.
The culture of collaboration is relatively new, right? I can do this is mine, so I want to do my way. So the problem with that, it's becoming very fragmented and very small.
Yeah.
None of the players in this place, even if they have great resources, financial resources, they cannot recreate or create this full, what I call, value chain.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, take any founder. So they have idea. They want to start idea. There are kind of not many places where they can go through incubation process.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So
there may be EPIC at University of AVA. There is probably Midkit, Digitain.
Startup Academy.
Yeah, exactly. At Hero House. So there are not many places they usually can go. But if they go through the process, what's next? Right. And it's not just one step. There are multiple steps which needs to be connected. So first of all, the founder wants to see what's the path for me.
Yeah.
Like, if I go through this, where would I end up?
Got it. Yeah.
Also, from the standpoint of the value chain, like, what kind of expertise we should create at each individual step.
Uh-huh.
And again, none of the players can create that. Not because of even financial constraints, which is definitely a big problem, but the biggest is expertise.
Yeah.
You don't have that type of expertise in skill set, right?
Yeah.
And that's not something you teach. I mean, as I mentioned.
Is it the exposure that's necessary?
Exposure, going through this transformation, it's not about information, it's about experience. So how can you create those experiences? And that only can happen at least in this environment, if we use what I call leverage. Leveraging, connecting, collaborating allows many players to leverage the same resource, build their internal capacities, right? At the same time, fill in the gaps and not, shy away or be restrained from lack of resources they have internally.
Can you give a concrete example of that, maybe of how that's happening today?
Again, one example, any given top university, at least in Armenia, right, they want to create internal incubator.
Right.
Right? So it could be kind of specific in business. It could be just for bigger university, right? Doesn't matter. The next question I ask them, what's next for these people? Where should they go? Okay, they won the competition. Great. Yeah. They got certificate. They got even a prize, $1,000. So how you support them from that point?
Right. What's the support system from there?
Right. So how you support? You definitely vested in their kind of success. You want their success because that will bring success to you. How do you create this environment? For example, the alumni network or the culture of alumni network is pretty much very weak, if not non-existent in some of the universities. And that's a huge opportunity. That's what creates, for example, the same Berkeley University is a unique place. Not because of the university itself. It's about this, again, the rings
right.
around
rings
it,
the planet,
like what you can do beyond that.
Yeah.
Right? So what's next for that university will be, for example, the hub, how you make this conduits, how you connect the people and processes together. And again, comes to my expertise in connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting the dots of, like, if we put these pieces together, right, we creating synergy.
Right, you're aligning interests.
Right, and synergistic, value, as we know, is much bigger than just the sum of pieces.
Yeah.
That's what the whole kind of definition of synergy.
Yeah.
So this is where this process of leverage comes in. You creating more with less.
Right. Right.
And we come to, as you mentioned from the beginning, ground zero.
Yes.
Ground zero, people perceive as a coffee shop, which is a coffee shop. However, coffee shop is essential and critical element of this ecosystem development. Coffee shop as a place which changes the mindset.
Okay.
So it's the starting point. First of all, ground zero, it's starting point.
Right.
It's named because of that, because things start there. It's enabled there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating environment with my partners who are, by the way, quite familiar, at least in Armenia, in Yerevan.
With the Armenian cafe space. And
right.
Coffee shop space.
Yeah. So I partnered with founders, two sisters, Kima and Sona, from Aperitivo.
Uh-huh.
And I've been watching and kind of definitely observing the place as one of also cultural phenomena or places and consistency and experiences which they went through and what kind of the changes they bring to the place. So it was definitely a great way to connect partner and do something quite different at a different level.
Yeah.
So with that said, what we do create. So I'm bringing this whole concept from the Silicon Valley, where technology and coffee cultures really the symbiosis of which you can't really find anywhere else in the world. So we develop now technology space. In this ecosystem, we have great improvement in Armenia. Now, how can you take this to the next level?
Leverage it
at the scale, right? So this is where coffee shops
right.
come in. Coffee shop, so the whole culture of deal making in informal environment where things over the hundreds of years been created.
Yeah,
it started in coffee shops. Even the first venture deals been done in coffee shops back in London, in coffee shops, or where you send ships to India, for example. Essentially, it's a high risk venture.
Right.
You invest in that venture. You don't know if that ship will come back or not.
Right.
But when it comes back, your profit could be 100 times.
Right.
And this is the
Just like
classical
startups.
definition of VC. And it's been done in coffee shops.
Yeah.
Right? So taking this to the Silicon Valley, what's unique, the spirit of this startup, of risk-taking, of pushing the envelope, which is present, what made the Silicon Valley, right? It pushed the coffee, the specialty coffee, high-quality coffee, culture to completely different level.
Yeah.
I do coffee tours in San Francisco. And idea was to take founders and international delegations over the last 10, 15 years, which I've been doing this, not only taste a great coffee, which also open up your horizon in terms of what coffee is or what kind of coffee could be, right? But also talk about different type of innovations in the business, in marketing, in community building, which happen in this small place, 10 by 10 kilometers called San Francisco.
Right.
Like how so many companies in that space build different type of high potential businesses, even global businesses around the same bean of coffee.
Right.
So that's mind-blowing in terms of like when you see how it's been done, what kind of processes they went through, how they live on the same block, and they have customers, they have global customers. So that's one. That's how the spirit changed the coffee culture and now spread around the world, and especially in the U.S. to New York and other places. But there is also another component, how this culture of coffee help the Silicon Valley and technology companies, to drive new level, new type of startups, innovations, right? So this symbiosis does not exist in other places yet.
Right.
And Ground Zero is,
trying to push that culture forward.
Right, and create that in Armenia.
Yeah.
Because we love coffee.
Right, yes.
Armenians love coffee, which is not new, right? At the same time, the coffee we've been consuming over the years been really bad or very bad.
Right.
So when you bring new high-quality coffee, has kind of features or qualities of similar to wine.
Yeah.
We know how wine culture, been driven by several people, changed Armenia, and now what we have.
Yes.
And Ground Zero station, or kind of founded on Saryan 1 Street in Yerevan, is kind of perfectly situated in the place where, wine culture started, and have similar qualities of wine.
Yeah.
You bring people to the new level, how to really perceive coffee, high-quality coffee.
Yeah. I have a question about the impact that this startup culture and tech culture to a greater extent has on the overall business culture of certain communities. So I've spent some time in San Francisco, and every company you see operating in the Bay Area, whether it's a shipping company or a cafe, has the same sort of DNA and look and vibe to it. They all operate like they're a high-growth tech startup. At least that's how it looks from the outside. Do you think with the startup ecosystem maturing and accelerating in Armenia, will that, or maybe how can we have that sort of trickle out to other sectors like, I don't know, winemaking or fashion industry, etc.? Like, how do we export that culture?
So,
or am I right that does that happen when you have a strong startup ecosystem, or is San Francisco just a unique corner of the world?
So you mentioned about the culture again, going back to why, for example, what Ground Zero tries to do. Yeah. Right. Ground Zero is not for techies only.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's about bringing new culture in terms of what kind of opportunities are out there. Yeah. You could be in different type of businesses. You could have completely or kind of non-existent connection to tech world in general. You probably never heard of companies we just talked about, right? It doesn't matter. You come there to change, expand your mindset and see what else is going on. Yeah. There is some sort of energy and spirit in this place. How you perceive coffee, food, and how people connect to each other. And this is what opens up your kind of, you may be expert in agriculture. Mm-hmm. And this allows you to kind of step back and look at your space from a different standpoint. This is where new ideas start developing, right? So you may get together with a techie guy who has something, or just some even outsider, tourist, right? You start conversation, and there is this exchange of information and experiences, right? And suddenly you come to realization, hey, I never heard of this, right? Interesting. Can I combine this and this and this in my world? So this is how innovation starts. Innovation is taking the same information, right, or available information, and putting together a different way. Or connecting differently, right? So this is how I see not everything you kind of create for the first time. Most of the time, it's like how you connect these pieces together. It also creates innovation.
There's a mold to it,
right?
You have to.
And again, idea of the essential element of changing the mindset of you usually drink bad coffee. Now you start trying kind of new coffee. You have different visuals, different effect of feelings about like what this is. You feel like a small taste of strawberry, for example, in your coffee, which never been introduced to coffee. But your senses are creating new visuals. They connect with your memories, your expertise, and you suddenly start seeing some different pictures. Right? Like perceiving the world around you. I mean, definitely it's a process. It's not just one day, one time. However, I'm creating this analogy to say this is the starting point. Definitely not enough to make everything we talk about. But people usually are good with something. They have some capabilities, qualities, expertise. They just don't see how they apply in different disciplines, in different places. Now you expand this horizon. You're saying this place is for anyone who is interested to come back repeatedly, to grow personally or professionally. Ground Zero is not the place only for startups, new startups. By the way, I spend time meeting with community, and it's not just for techies. If you have something to talk about, let's come. I have the coffee hour.
Coffee hours, It's a fantastic initiative you're doing.
The idea is... hey, maybe I can give you some perspective which can help you. You never know when it will come back. Many times new ideas take time to process, to
bake inside you.
To connect with you internally in your experiences, which you may not have at that point. I had many cases when founders came back to me and they said, Karen, what you told us like a year ago just resonated with me. I just realized what the value is. Or what you've been describing for months ago, we went through the process and we realized how deeply we see this process.
Something you can have a conversation with someone at some point that it doesn't really click then, but you'll have some experience down the road where that value will then arise.
And it's not their fault. It's about, again, limited experiences they have. Eventually, this leads to this process of going through the tunnel and coming out on the top of the mountain and seeing this entire broad horizon with all the colors and shapes.
Okay, Gagan, I think we could speak for another 2 or 3 hours. I think this is one of the podcasts where I've spoken the least. It was so fascinating hearing your experience. Let's finish with our last question. Where do you hope to see the Armenian tech ecosystem in the coming 5 to 10 years? What hopes do you have for it?
Definitely not only hopes, but at least the efforts are in that direction. Again, if I consider my experience and expertise, which been developed over the shape in different parts of the world and over the last 30 years, right? To take and create what the next mission is, at least. And if you look at my career path, you see a very clear pattern of 4 or 5 years every time. Work with the government, you know, consulting, you know, working with large multinationals. And that experience was really rich. I mean, taking companies to IPO like Tesla, you know, just, you know, doing M&A, doing digital transformations with top names in the Valley. That's great. So every 4 or 5 years, I'm asking, what's the next big thing, right? And it's clear to me that the success, which was done primarily, is they put it single-handedly on my shoulders throughout, the last 5 years. I definitely want to expand the success stories.
Yeah.
Take them to the new level. And most important thing is to institutionalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when people say single-handedly, it doesn't mean it's institutional yet.
Right. If it's institutional, then it becomes detached from...
If I'm not doing it,
exactly, yeah.
that falls apart.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be just based on me only.
Because that's unsustainable.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's for any business, right?
Yeah.
Whatever I consider business.
Yeah.
Right? At some point, it detaches from the founders. It's a body, it's an organism which lives.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of what I'm at least hoping to achieve. And I'm definitely encouraging and calling for people and organizations who want to be on this journey. This is not my journey. This is big journey beyond me. I definitely can help. I can definitely connect, and I definitely can design, architect the ecosystem, and help to drive. At the same time, it's joint effort.
Right.
And I call for people who wants to be on this place from different walks of life and definitely different industries. This requires joint effort from financial side, from partnership side, from banking side, from service side, from university, definitely. So we have a lot to do.
Yeah.
And Armenia is and can be the center, at least for the region.
Yeah.
Finishing this thought, when I was definitely doing a lot of comparison and putting parallels between the coffee and tech businesses, why they're so important, why they're so connected. Think of this. Armenians who created the coffee shops in the same London or Vienna, they've been a great example of entrepreneurship. They saw in Ottoman Empire some great opportunity. Not only they seized that opportunity, but they expanded. So I want to remind through historical context and stories, bringing definitely experts who can talk about this more, to remind that we have that spirit. We just need to nurture and develop, release that potential. Like if you look at the coffee bean, it's squeezed, it's like very tight, right? So by looking at that bean, by really filling that bean, by roasting it to the proper place, you can bring that to the top potential. You can unveil that potential.
That's inside of it.
Right. So what we've been doing with companies, same thing with the coffee. So there is a lot of similarities what we do. Like there are so many different aspects and variables which go into this process. But finding this sweet spot and finding these opportunities, we can really unveil not only your internal genius in a sense, right? To say who you are, to develop the way you are on a global scale. This is what we, at least my mission, this is what I've been doing for a number of years, and this is definitely what I'd like to share my journey, going forward with other people. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more to talk with you about, so I hope you'll join us again to speak about all that. Garanjan, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.